My name is Bob DeYoung. I'm the Assistant Executive Director for THSADA. Welcome to the Region 3 or the DFW Area Athletic Directors Regional Meeting. We have a long list of attendees today. We got about 300 people that are going to join us. And if you would, when you enter the meeting as an attendee, go ahead and sign in and leave us your school district and or state. I see Karen is signing in from Michigan. So we have people from around the country coming in today. There's a Michigan and there's a couple other ones that are from different states. But it should be a very well attended meeting. Leslie's going to lead this meeting after our state sponsors get started. So I think we've got enough attendees that have entered. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our two state sponsors today. We'll begin with Varsity Brands and Lisa Bartek. So Lisa, go ahead and take it over. Welcome.
Awesome. Hi, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Bartek, and I'm the Director of Communications at BSN Sports. But today, I've been offered a couple minutes just on behalf of Varsity Brands to talk a little bit about our new Impact Now program. It goes without saying that prepping for the coming months of the school year have been incredibly difficult to plan for. And while we certainly do not have all of the answers at Varsity Brands, we did feel like we could help. So we pulled together some initiatives across our three divisions, BSN Sports, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones, to create the Impact Now program, which focuses on three key things. So that's physical well-being, emotional well-being, and maintaining and elevating school spirit. And we packaged that all together through the Impact Now playbook. And I'm gonna go ahead and share just a little bit of information with you guys around that. So our Impact Now program, again, it combines all of these resources into one consolidated playbook that touch on these three topics. But to familiarize yourself with the content a little bit, I'm going to take just a couple minutes to highlight some of the main offerings that you can find on the website. So first, we have our physical well-being products. So through BSN Sports, we've developed a full line of customizable masks and social distancing signage to help keep students safe on campus while adding welcoming touches like your mascot, school name, and school colors to each design. The masks are available as a neck buffy or an over-the-ear design with double ply material that helps you meet the CDC guidelines, and signage is available for walls and ground decals, both indoor and outdoor. And these are tools that were specifically created to provide students with somewhat of a sense of normalcy and connection, and what's going to be for a lot of kids an alarming new reality and things that just are completely different and new for them that they might struggle with a little bit. And that brings me to our next section, which is the emotional health portion of the Impact Now playbook. We recently launched our social and emotional learning program, which is an extension of our Believe in You program, if you're familiar with it. So this is a program that I'm incredibly proud of because I've seen firsthand the passion and the research that went into developing these 40-week student empowerment journals for grades 3 through 12. While virtual needs are going to remain prevalent throughout the entire year, these journals are a physical, tangible tool that help kids manage stress and anxiety around their current situation, but also allow them to continue growing emotionally. And regardless of technology, these can be effectively used as a tangible resource that they physically are writing and discovering emotions through. And as an extension of our Believe in You video series, these can be used in tandem or independently of the series. And the concept is to use these journals throughout the district so that all of your kids are staying on one page of their SEL platform. They're all in line. So if you're wondering how students would progress with the program, the plan is to have fresh new journals for every single year as they continue on this path. And we'll renew it for the early elementary, upper elementary, and high school journals. And these are available for purchase right now between $5 and $7, depending on your order size per student. And they also include guidance for weekly mantras, discussion guides, class activities, and there's also training available to help your staff implement these journals, whether you have an advisory period or a homeroom that kicks off each day. So lastly, we close out this Impact Now playbook with our school spirit initiatives. And while school spirit may seem like something that's just a nice to have, at Varsity Brands, we honestly believe it's crucial to keeping students engaged. So while I really encourage you to share this content with your student council leaders, as well as student spirit programs like your cheer, dance, and band, I'm going to focus on one specific section of this, which is our Unity products for this group. So our Unity initiative and Welcome Back designs have been created both for clothing and campus branding. So these banners that you see on the right of the screen are actually vinyl banners that are 3 foot by 8 foot that you could hang in the hallways, outside, at your athletic facilities. And as you can see, the slogans match. So the goal is to pick a slogan that unites your whole campus and community, that you can both outfit your students and staff with and your facilities. And what a better way to refocus school pride and renew excitement for the year than to outfit your entire campus through this theme of togetherness. And these are available through the BSN My Team shop. So either reach out to your sales pro or you can visit the Impact Now landing page whenever you download the playbook. I've added the links I will add the links to download this playbook in the chat so that everyone has this available. But just as a quick reminder, if you do download the playbook, your school is automatically entered to win one of 5 grand prizes. So that's either professional school branding design, which includes a complete redesign of mascot, logos, or we could just help refresh a brand that already exists. And then you have 4 runner-ups that will receive a facility branding package just for downloading this content. I sincerely hope that this is helpful for you all and that it, maybe helps answer some of the questions that you have going into your upcoming school year. And I really appreciate the time to help get this started. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. We really appreciate the work that Varsity Brands and BSN have done to stay at the forefront of serving our coaches and athletic directors in our school districts in this very unusual time. So thanks again for your presentation and for all your company's work. Next, we'll move on to Randy Bullock from Hellas Construction. Randy, take it away.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Hope everyone's had a safe and restful weekend. Here we are at the end of July, staring August in the face, 2020. We're hard to believe we're on the back half of this crazy year, and we're excited hopefully to get these schools open and get a normal start back for everyone, if there is a normal. Just wanted to update you guys on what we've been doing past 5 months. We've been very, very busy in North Texas. We've been on about 55 campuses here in Region 3. A lot of great projects. I'd like to highlight a few where we've been and the new fields that we put in. Wiley ISD Stadium just put in new synthetic turf with Helix technology and the Ecotherm, the cooling infill product that we have is Tony Heath and Mark Ball have done a great job down in Houston and West Texas of selling this product. It's been a very, very good product. Tyler Rose Stadium, Earl Campbell Field, historic legendary, will be able to have the Helix technology and our cush drain pad out in Tyler. Citibank Stadium at Forney, the new Helix technology have upgraded their facilities with the cush drain pad as well. Little Elm Stadium over in Little Elm, Texas, with Dr. Howell over there. They have new Helix technology, Ecotherm infill, and they have a brand new, as we speak, we're installing a Z5000 full pour Olympic style running track in her stadium. So be looking forward to a lot of track meets over in Little Elm, Texas. Carrollton Farmers Branch, we've been with them about a year now. They're upgrading, putting fields, synthetic turf fields on all their campuses, along with baseball and softball. Congratulations to Renee and those guys over there. Duncanville ISD has looks like a college campus now. They have practice fields, they have baseball, softball, brand new stadium field, great facilities down there. And Eagle Mountain Saginaw's just put in 6 brand new middle school fields with the GeoField coconut infill. Very excited about that. Mr. Florence over in Denton is getting brand new facilities at Denton Ryan and Denton Gower. He's upgrading, putting in brand new practice fields along with baseball and softball. Rockwall High School and Rockwall Heath have 2 brand new Helix matrix fields. Red Oak High School has 2 practice fields along, and just a lot of great facilities going up. Richardson ISD has brand new indoor facilities. Lake Dallas is getting a brand new indoor facility. Very, very busy. We've been very fortunate and very blessed. We've had great projects going on with the collegiate level and NFL level. If you haven't been able to take a look at the new Raiders Stadium, we've been able to work with those guys at Allegiant Stadium. We're doing the SoFi Stadium for the Rams and the Chargers. We're doing work in Jacksonville with the Jaguars and Miami. Harper, I think a few of you from Region 3 have been able to visit the stadium out at Allegiant at Las Vegas. And Harper is obviously, she runs Hellas up here, and she does a great job. She's our liaison for the NFL. And if any of you are either out in Vegas or in Southern California and you want to go visit the stadiums and have site visits and tours, we'll be able to help you out with that. We were excited about doing that for you. One of the things, changing gears on safety. Safety is basically the big thing now, and what we're heading into is it's basically our top priority for our employees and our customers right now being on campuses. Having over 1,200 employees, we spend a lot of time on cleaning, training, and working with caution. We're doing a lot of deep cleaning, as you know, disinfecting. A lot of you have reached out to us for those. We're full doing those this summer, and we're continuing to do that through the first part of the fall. We're working with a lot of you on budgets and bond planning for 21 and 22. We'll continue to do that, and you can reach out to myself, contact me on email or my cell phone, and I'll be able to come visit and meet with you on those topics. We basically share the same visions that you guys share. We're designing and we're doing a lot of building and different athletics facilities in Texas. We see a lot of different things. One of the things I'll point out, and I think some of you probably seen it on Twitter or social media, is Marshall ISD. They're doing a covered pavilion over their practice field, and it's something that's an idea I think they got from UTSA, which we're working with those guys down at UTSA and the coaches down there for their covered pavilion, and we were able to do the one at UAB. So that's something that was almost cut in half. If you're looking at an indoor facility for a bond, which we know that those are going to be their own propositions now with stadiums. Those covered pavilions are coming in about half the cost of what a facility for an indoor facility would cost. So we have those numbers, and I'd love to go show you guys that. And right now it's going vertical. The piers have been poured and the beams are fixing to be installed. So when that gets close, I'd love to take anyone out to take a look at that just to see how that's we'll see what's involved with that construction. Thank you for everyone's time. We look forward to seeing all of you in person, hope very soon. And we're very grateful to be your partner, and we greatly appreciate the relationships that we have here, not just in this region, but in the state of Texas. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Randy, thanks so much for your service and all the work that Hellas does. BSN, Varsity Brands, and Hellas are some of our top sponsors around the state, and a long-time partnership that we've had with you guys, and we appreciate you guys being here today. And it's always interesting watching a business to a degree kind of reinvent themselves in times like this, because you have found new ways to serve our educational community. So much appreciated for both you guys. One quick announcement before I turn it back over to Leslie. In an effort to serve our membership, ever-growing membership, we have another event scheduled for this Friday at 10 o'clock. We've invited Scott Galloway, who's the Assistant Director of Athletics in West Settlement, also an athletic training background. to serve as the moderator of other athletic trainers on a panel to talk about the challenges that they're facing, their roles, and what's going to be expected of an athletic trainer this fall as we move forward. I'm sure a lot of ADs have had that discussion already, but it's probably going to be very valuable for our membership to hear what's going around the state and around the country in regards to keeping kids and coaches safe and how an athletic trainer can help with that. You'll get an attendee invite probably later today on that, so put it on your calendar for this Friday at 10 o'clock. That ends my portion of the meeting. I'm going to turn it back over to Leslie Slovak. She's our new Region 3 Director here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So, Leslie, you've got a great agenda planned today, so go ahead and take it over.
Okay, thank you, Bob, and thank you both, Bob and Rusty, for your support. Also to Randy and Lisa, appreciate you jumping on today and all that you do for the association. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today and let you know what an honor it is to serve in this new role. We have an incredible region, as most of you know, incredible leaders in Region 3, but not only in Region 3, but in the state. And so I look forward to serving. I look forward to learning from each of you and growing as an administrator. I know that we're better together, and we are in this together. And there's no playbook for leading during a pandemic. So I know that I don't have all the answers, and I know weekly I depend on many of the people on this panel and many of you listening in, just a sounding board. And I just appreciate the feedback that I get. And we just, you know, we are in this together. And today I hope you walk away feeling a little bit better, because we have to stay flexible. I think we have to show grace, but we have to lead in a way where our coaches know that we support them. So we will get started with, we have a lot of questions on the agenda. And the first one is, what has been the biggest challenge with making adjustments to your schedule? And so I'm going to start with Philip O'Neill from Mansfield. And Philip, if you can just share with your thoughts on some of these challenges.
You know, for me, the biggest challenge, Leslie, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. For me, the biggest challenge has been to figure out how to plan for potentially not playing all of the games in your district, and then how do you then determine who is going to be the full representatives from your district based on the potential that some teams play their entire district schedule and potentially others don't play the entire schedule. So how do you then determine who the representatives are? And I've heard a multitude of different ways that people are considering doing this. I've heard of people, I talked to David Kirkendall this morning about they're going to play zones and potentially play zones. And so they're talking about zoning their district. They have 9 teams, having 5 teams in one zone and 4 in the other, and playing those games out first. And then if they then have games that get canceled, and they have the schedule at the end of the season to potentially get those zone games in. You know, I've heard of, you know, I know in Arlington and the district that Southlake is in, they're both 7-team districts. So they're going to play their district games first, and then they're going to play their non-district games at the end, and they're going to match up with each other. I know they're having some discussions about that. I've heard of people utilizing testing to try to, you know, get their games in, you know, and have players sit out so they maybe don't miss any games. You know, I've heard of a multitude of things. I've heard of, I even talked about maybe potentially using the Harris poll to use points, positive and negative points, based on how the games were supposed to be, what the outcome was supposed to be. You know, I'm looking at my list here. There has just been a multitude of people have talked about using mathematical formulas for games that didn't play, and how do you derive, you know, a win percentage based on potential games that weren't played. So there's just a multitude of things that are out there. I know that the districts, 2 of the districts that I'm in, we have met and we've determined when we're going to play, but we really haven't determined that part of it yet. We're still thinking that through. But that for me has been the most difficult thing to try to wrap my brain around. Some teams get in all of their games, other teams don't. And then how in the end do you determine who the representatives are for that particular district, and how is that fair and equitable, and how do you create that? So for me, that's been the toughest thing, just in terms of rescheduling. You can sit down and you can look at the window that you have, and try to come up with a schedule, a playing schedule. You know, one of the things that's different for us is we're in Tarrant County, so Tarrant County won't allow us to begin until September the 28th, whereas some of our other opponents are in Dallas County, Ellis County, McLennan County. They don't have the same mandate that we have, the same order that we have to not start on the 28th. They get to start sooner than we do. So, you know, there's an unlevel playing field that's being created from some of the health advisors. And again, I'm not dissing on them or saying anything negative about them. They're making decisions that they think are in the best interest and safest for all. But again, those are some of the challenges that we're confronted with. I know that Lisa Langston and Fort Worth, they have some 4A schools, so we're not allowed in Tarrant County to start till the 28th. 4A schools are beginning the season, you know, on a normal UIL calendar, and so her 4A schools, and I know Kennedale is also a school district that butts up to us here in Mansfield. They have 5 playing days. This is all they have. So again, volleyball is the same. We're having the same discussions with volleyball. Volleyball's struggling with, you know, getting those games in and some of the other sports. So again, that's the challenges for us. I used football as the example, but again, you're having the same challenge in volleyball and everything else.
Yes, thank you, Philip. I agree. And you touched on a great point. You know, not all of us are in the same county. And so we're not used to there being different rules. I think for me personally, as a leader and an administrator, the biggest challenge is we've always had a set of rules given to us by the UIL, and we know what they are. It's black and white. There's some gray. If it's gray, we get clarification. But now we're under all these different sets of rules depending on what county you're in. So it does give us a new set of challenges. And you led me right into the next question. Lisa Langston from Fort Worth, I would love for you to touch on your challenge with having some 4A school, a 4A school in your district.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. One of the things, looking at our challenges, you have to get in the right mindset. And Leslie, you touched on this earlier, and so I'm just going to say this to everyone. We got to make sure we're showing ourselves some grace, okay? And the way that I've looked at this is some people are driving in a speedboat, and then there's some of us like Fort Worth ISD, we're on an aircraft carrier. And so when you say pivot, because we've been hearing that word a lot this summer, think about the pivoting of a speedboat versus an aircraft carrier. And so that's the thing that we're looking at, is how we maneuver. We're going to get there. It's just going to take us a little longer. And for us, we've had a multitude of challenges. Number one, like you said, having schools in 3 different classification. 4A only being allowed 5 football games, whereas with the 5A, they should be able to get 7 district games in. And then you look at volleyball for the 4A, because like Philip mentioned, we can't start play or practice until September 28th. Our 4A is only going to be able to get 1 round of district play in, whereas with our 5 and possibly the 6A, who hasn't met yet, but with the 5A, they're going to be able to get their full schedule in by playing on 3 Saturdays. And so for us, we're going to have some explaining to do to some parents, because we got some that are doing one thing and some are getting a greater opportunity. And another challenge for us is we have 3 football stadiums. 2 of them are 10,000 plus seating. And thankfully, those are already marked for social distancing. So that's one positive, because that's one thing I always trying to think positively. But one of our smallest stadium, we're not going to be able to play in that, because you can't. There's just not a way to put people in that stadium and feel good about the social distancing. So for us, one of the biggest challenge is also rescheduling football games. Thankfully, we're talking about starting play in October, so it's a little cooler. So those Saturday afternoon games, Saturday morning games won't be as bad, if we were playing in September. So that's been a challenge for us. But like I said, when there's challenges, there's also opportunities. And so that's one thing we're just trying to also think about the positive. We're in almost a self-contained district, so we have a lot of control over ourselves. So that part is a positive. Now, when it comes up to who we match up to in the playoff, that's a different story, as Philip touched on, because some of our people are going to be able to start from day one, and so there's going to be some competitive advantage. But we're just trying to hit, take all the challenges that are coming towards us and do like leaders do, just lead our people to the best of our ability. And the one thing I will also say is, I got a pencil. I'm writing everything in pencil because there's a meeting going on in our district right now with all our upper leadership. And so everything that I tell you guys today might be changed tomorrow.
Thank you, Lisa. Great point. Next question, will you build in open dates within your district games? And when we say open dates, not just football, but we're talking about volleyball, basketball too, some of your team sports. Valerie from Prosper, will you touch on that and what you're thinking as far as open dates?
Sure. So a lot of our 6A football, those guys have already met. 5A is going to meet this afternoon. But I do know that in basketball and volleyball, they're going to have some open dates in there. It's one of those rather be safe than sorry, right? They're going to even cancel some non-district games to provide some holes for them. Because as we all know, right, it's those district games that matter. So yes, we are going to leave some holes in our volleyball and football schedules.
Okay.
Football is to be determined today.
Okay. And the challenge, it's much more challenging with football, obviously, because of your limitation and how few games we play anyway. It's a little bit easier in volleyball and basketball. Anyone else on the panel want to touch on either your open dates, possibility, or challenges? Anybody else before we move on? Okay, next question. Is your DEC considering adding guidelines for all sports that address a game not played due to COVID? And I'm going to ask Sean Pratt from McKinney to touch on that, please.
Yeah, Leslie, I think, that's one of the things. There's two things. I know we had some guys not even wanting to meet, and there were two things I felt like we had to meet about, and that was one of them, how we're going to handle those games not played. And I gave a couple of our football coaches a scenario where, if one's 4-2 and the other's 5-1 going into the last district game, and that 5-1 team, say they're facing a powerhouse and they don't play because of COVID, and that other one plays and wins, well, they're 5-2, you're 5-1, you've got a better winning percentage. So I think those things got to be sat down and worked out, and how are we going to handle that? And I think the other thing, in my opinion, that's got to, and Philip threw out some things there that addressed that question earlier, some that I'd not heard, that I may ask him more specifically about later. But the other thing I think is what is some guidelines of what's appropriate to cancel a football game or a volleyball game or a basketball game, whatever it be, what's appropriate to cancel because of COVID. Because what my thought of what's appropriate to cancel and yours may be totally different. There'll be a lot of guys, you let them lose one player, if it's a starting quarterback, there'll be a lot of them want to say, I can't play. And we all know, and then each sport's different. Basketball, you got five starters, you got 22 in football. So I think each sport's going to have to be addressed, and obviously it's going to be a gentleman's agreement in the end, but I think just establishing some parameters of when you do play and when you don't play.
Yeah, great points. Anybody else on that topic? Any thoughts from the panel?
The one thing to Sean's point, that he talked about a gentleman's agreement. And I think, when I think about our profession and I think about the opportunity that we have during this time to model what it is to be professional and to model to our athletes what it is to have integrity, I think this is a great opportunity. When I think about what we're going through, we have a great opportunity here to model a lot of things. And to Sean's point, it's a gentleman's agreement, and there's going to have to be some integrity involved in people doing the right thing no matter what their circumstances are, and try to eliminate the gamesmanship that may be created by some of the scenarios. But I think, again, I think integrity is going to be something that we're going to really be able to model and show people that in our profession, people have integrity and that we use that. And so, I think that's a big part of what we're going to be experiencing this year.
Well, and as I told the coach the other day about that topic, he said, well, you can make the parameter. That's why I said it's a gentleman's agreement, because somebody made the comment, well, you're not going to know how many COVIDs he has, et cetera. And I said, you're right. I said, I don't know that all of his kids have passed all their classes. I don't know that they live in his zone, but we all have to have integrity and trust each other and give each other the benefit of the doubt. So
that's a great point. Great point. Would love to hear now from Coach K in Frisco. Coach K, has your district made a decision yet on transportation with the guidelines coming down from TEA on how we're limited to number of kids on a bus? Are y'all going to allow parents to take kids to games, or have y'all addressed the transportation issue for athletics?
Well, first of all, Leslie, thanks for asking me to be on the committee. This is a distinguished group right here, and I learned a whole bunch of stuff already, and just barely got started. But I've talked with our head of transportation over in Frisco ISD, and what he told me, and this may have changed since then, and this was only about a week and a half ago that this happened, is that he said usually the buses that the football teams take, for example, usually he calls those 24-seat buses. And he told me that you can allow, according to what he said, two kids per seat. So that'd be 24 times 2, it'd be 48 in a bus. Well, we don't even ever have 48 in a bus when we go to a football game. I don't know about y'all, but we probably take 2 or 3 buses so they can spread out. And so the football thing, I think we're going to kind of be okay about. I'm not sure exactly how band will look, but as far as some of those other sports, Leslie, you're exactly right. We're going to encourage the parents to have some notes that they bring to those ball games and sign those kids out. We normally don't like to do that. We like for the kids to stay and support all the different teams that are there. But this is going to be an exceptional year, and we're going to encourage them to take them home. So that's that's a little bit different than what we have done in the past. And obviously, when you get down to the middle school, that's another big hassle that they're wanting them to sign them out, and we're arguing with them. You shouldn't be signed out. Well, this year, no, we want to encourage you to leave the gym, get out of here, take your kid with you. And that's pretty much the way it is with all the teams. So we kind of talked a little bit about the football side of it, and then we talked a little bit about the non-football group as far as transportation is concerned.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else from the panel, thoughts on transportation concerns? Have you addressed that yet? Anything different? Okay. Next question. And I know for us, I'm going to be honest, we don't have a lot of these answers yet. And this is one that I'm really struggling with, Kevin and I are struggling with, is how are we going to handle season tickets and season ticket holders when we have capacity issues? And what we're thinking about doing is we truly believe that the seniors that are playing the game and performing at the game, their parents should have priority to see the game. But logistically, how are we going to do that? And then how are we going to, for a student section, what are we going to do to make sure that senior students have first priority? So Lisa, you touched on capacity, but could you go into more detail about how you mark your stadium, and then how are you dealing with who gets tickets and who gets priority?
Okay, well, first of all, we do not have season tickets, so that's an issue we don't have to address. And in our football stadium, we had outdoors graduation. And so that's the reason why our stadiums are already marked for social distancing, because they had to mark them for graduation. And depending on what time of the day, people sat on one side or the other. So consequently, both sides of the stadium at Farrington, which is where I am, where my office is housed, and also at Clark. So we won't have that issue at the football stadium. I would love for us to get to the point where we have to address that, but right now I think we're pretty safe with the size of our stadium.
Okay, good. Well, anybody else, could y'all address if you are having concerns about season tickets and limiting and how you communicate that?
So Leslie, we just, we told ours there are no season tickets this year. We're going to save their tickets for after the pandemic. They'll still have their season tickets. It just won't be this season. And it's going to be first come, first serve every week. We're going to put them on sale for Saturday, the week before the game. And I think just we're going to give our parents, as Lisa was alluding to, we're going to give our parents a code. They can get in before the general public can get into the games, get their tickets. but we're killing every other row, and then we're killing 2 seats next to every group that buys tickets. So it's actually going to be, quite honestly, a little less than 50% when you go do the math. But the other thing we did in our 5A is we got together, John King and Johnny Ringo, and some of us got together because we've got some distance and travel. And we're just, for instance, if John King is coming to McKinney North, I'm going to tell him, John, this is how many seats you have on the visitor side. And he's going to sell his own ticket to his people that week and just show me what it is. Because we want them leaving Longview with a ticket in hand. We don't want them showing up in McKinney and us saying, hey, we're at capacity and sold out. And so he'll sell them. He'll call me, if we give him 2,000 tickets, he'll call and say we sold 1,000 or whatever, and we'll leave that many more at the gate on the visitor side that night. But just to ensure that you don't have parents showing up either that you're hosting that don't have tickets, and can't get in.
That's great. Thank you. Great information there. Anybody else comments on that as far as capacity issues with stadiums?
Hey, Leslie, right now, in Frisco, we have 3 stadiums that we play at. One's a Ford Center, one's Toyota, so there's plenty of room at both of those places. The only one that's a little smaller is one over at Memorial, but we're gonna try to cap what goes in those stadiums based off the percentage that it's allowed to do, and we shouldn't have any trouble over at Toyota and the Ford. But we're gonna, and basically what we're gonna tell everybody is that everybody has to purchase a ticket online. There's no such thing as coming to the gate and buying a ticket and walking in. So we'll be able to communicate that from the very start of the week to the opponent that we're playing, as well as our guys. And then if we ever reach a point where we're getting close to capacity, then we just stop selling. Now, the concern there is that everybody, if I'm a parent, I didn't get that in. Well, we got a committee right now that's working on what does it look like for families of kids that play the sports and seniors, et cetera. So they're kind of hammering that idea out. But the unique thing that we kind of fell into here in Frisco, and this was, I don't remember, it might have been last spring, or not last spring, 2 springs ago. We have installed Pixelot cameras in all our stadiums and all our gymnasiums. And so consequently, the feed will be going live during the ball game. We can now with Friday night games, Thursday night games, as well as all of the volleyball games and even middle school games. So if for some reason a parent didn't get in, or they come to the gate and they thought they could buy a ticket or whatever the case is, and we turn them away, then there's a website that they can go to actually watch the game itself. And we fell into that. That had nothing to do with Corona or COVID or anything like that. That was something we were going to do. And now it's turned out to kind of going to be a safety net for us if some people start complaining that they can't get in.
Right. Great point, David. And we're in the process right now of, we just signed a contract with NFHS and to have cameras installed and live stream. And I'll be honest, I've been looking at doing it, but all of a sudden I felt the pressure because we know that we're going to be limited with capacity. And so I would encourage you to consider looking at that, because if you're not going to live stream, that you might want to get in front of that as far as communication, because I think there's going to be an expectation from parents and families when all of a sudden they can't get into a game, that they're going to wonder, well, can I watch it? And I think that will be an expectation around the state, and it may not be possible for everyone to do that, but definitely something to think about.
Another thing is when you talk about volleyball games, how we're going to do the courts. We've kind of got it set up now with the volleyball and basketball, is that we'll know what capacity is on the actual gymnasium. And again, once they reach that capacity, we'll have 2 people, one that's taking up the money or whatever to get into the gate, and another one with a clicker on their thumb. And so as people enter, then you're counting how many people are coming in. And once we hit max, we're shutting the doors. You're not allowed in. But then the alternative is this will be something that we'll be advertising from day one, that they can go and watch it online somewhere. So if it is really a problem or concern, and I don't really know how that's going to look or how to work out. We may have but everybody's going to have some issues at the beginning. So they'll get used to it, just like the fans always do.
Hey, Coach K, real quick, and I ask you, I've got Musco Lighting actually has a live streaming service now, and they're actually coming today to look at the stadium. My question for you though, are you selling, like, if let's say Friday night football, if you hit capacity and people are watching live stream, are you getting the revenue on that live stream?
Yeah, we will work out a system, and we haven't zeroed in on it yet, Sean, but they'll have you could actually purchase something for a season. Maybe it's a license or something like that. And then you go back in, depending on what the situation was, your game fee for that one game may be different than somebody that all of a sudden came to the game and all of a sudden, oh crap, I didn't figure this out right, and then they had to go home and look at it. But it won't necessarily 100% of them be free. We haven't really talked that over yet. I think obviously going home early to see a middle school 7th grade basketball game or volleyball game would be quite different than a football game, and whether or not we would even charge at middle school. We'll still kind of mashing that around a little bit, but yes, the bottom line is it's not a free service, and we're also going to try to make it for those people that for whatever reason didn't get a ticket in advance, like we're asking them to, if they can go on their phone and they can purchase a ticket on their phone and have the RQ code, and they could come in and they could get in with that thing just like they could a pre-printed receipt or ticket that they have.
Gotcha. Thank you, Coach.
Very good. Anybody else on that? Anybody else on the panel want to add anything else before we move?
I was just going to say, if some people are panicking about that, I'm not really that far down the road and prepping for that. I'm kind of just beginning that process to a degree, and so I don't think anybody out there needs to be panicking if they don't have anything set in stone yet. Everybody is kind of just beginning that process for the most part. So I wouldn't panic. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was district passes. So how are you guys handling district passes? One of the things we talked about in our DEC meeting the other day was to not even issue district passes just because of the uncertainty of somebody showing up and wanting to get in with their family. We talked about maybe doing comp tickets for coaches' families and administration in advance to be able to control that, and kind of going back to the old antiquated way we used to do ticketing.
Philip, that's a great point. And it's funny, it was yesterday that it just dawned on me that we've got district passes now. We do them, and we do them for 2 years. And so when we make them good for 2 years, if we continue to do that, then you get so many of those out there, you can't limit it. It's going to be really hard. And then you're turning away someone that has a district pass. So I think that's a great point. And I know that's on my list also. And, you know, everyone that's listening, Philip makes a great point. I think we all need to tap the brakes and realize that we can't have all the answers today for all of this, that it is going to take time, and we have time. But I know that we're leaders and we're planners, and we want to move, and we want to have everything done right now. And it's really not possible. This is just such a new way of thinking, and we have to think outside the box. And so definitely do not panic. Our next question is, I want to know, how are you going to handle media? And Val, have you thought about that for your games, on how y'all are going to handle media any different than you did in the past?
We're going to make them buy it and watch it on NFHS. No. So one of the things we did talk about was just limiting it to the media of the 2 teams that are playing. You know, like the random Dallas Morning News reporter who wants to come, but he's not really tied to either team. That's where we're kind of running into, do we let them in? How many do we let in? But we're going to make even our media, every single person who comes into our stadium, whether it's with a Prosper ISD staff badge, TGCA pass, whatever it is, they are going to have to get a ticket. So even if that means they get here and then go up and get a comp ticket with their badge, right, we plan to have that in place too, because we have to keep a number of how many people are in that stadium. So that's about as far as we've gotten on it, just saying we're going to limit it to those 2 teams that are playing, kind of like we'll do with scouts, right? If you're playing the next, like if you're the next opponent for Prosper High, we will let you come scout. But if you're 2 to 3 opponents out, we're not going to be able to let you. Try to find a way to limit that stuff.
Right. And that's a great point. And we're going to have to think about your press box, and everybody's a little different. You know, we're fortunate that I think we can spread some people out, and we don't have to make major changes, but there's definitely some changes we have to think about. I mean, we have administrators and school board that bring their family up, and then all of a sudden there's not a lot of people up there, and 10 minutes later I look around and it's packed. And are we still going to serve food? Are we going to do box food? Or are we really doing buffet style food right now? Because that's not really recommended. And so there's a lot to think about there too. Anybody else on the panel? Could you weigh in on media and maybe your press box?
So I didn't think about, I mean, I don't have really anything to add about media, but it just crossed my mind. What about gold cards and senior citizens that we all let into games for free? I mean, that's something we're gonna have to consider too.
It really is. And I had not thought about senior citizen passes. That's a great point. That's a great point. And we've got to think about too, you know, I want to make sure we take care of our, we're not marching. Our bands have decided that they're not going to actually compete this year, but we're going to have more of like a pep band. But I think it's important that those parents are able to attend, and cheerleader parents, and the drill team still performing. So just a lot to think about. And I definitely do not have all those answers, you know, right now. But Coach K, anything from you maybe on media? Have you thought about that as far as limiting or doing anything different?
I think the key is limiting. Okay, now whatever criteria you use to limit, then just stay with it for whatever season. We're real lucky that in our communications department, we've hired Matt Wixon, and he's an old Dallas Morning News guy, and he kind of handles all of our requests that go in for any kind of credential. It goes through him, and so he can vet them out pretty good, whether this is just some guy that's off the street versus somebody that really needs to be in there. But I do think that's the answer. I think as far as the admission to the parents of the kids that are actually performing, like you said, the band, the drill team, the cheerleaders, again, I don't know that one answer could come from this office. That's why we're going to probably get a committee together representing each one of those groups and trying to hammer out what is the bottom line, guys, is whatever we do this year, it may be the one time we do it, you know, but we've got to come up with something, and it's not going to make everybody happy. So that's another thing, is that you might upset a group, but you know what? It is what it is. If you've been in this profession long enough, we've ticked off a lot of people, and I know that I've been in it a lot longer than most of you, so I've ticked off a whole bunch more than y'all have. But it's just, that's the way it's going to be, you know. And whatever's best for your district and your campus, that's got to be the way it goes.
Great point. Great point. I can tell you one thing that I'm struggling with and trying to wrap my head around is managing locker rooms for practices and games, because we're shut down right now because we're Dallas County. So, and even we weren't using locker rooms anyway, but I'm trying to wrap my head around, once we're in-person learning at the junior high and high school level, and we've got locker rooms that are normally packed, are we going to stagger? How are we going to do that? And how do you stagger them and shower and get them to class on time? And then we've got virtual learners coming up to play and practice and then go home. So I'm just curious, Sean, could you touch on that? Have you thought about that from a logistics standpoint?
You know, somewhat, but I'll be honest, with after the UIL release, and we've been so focused on schedules and some of the DEC procedures and all that. While we started a return to play, you know, return to campus for the fall. We have not gotten deep into the details. I'm sorry. Somebody else probably would answer that better than me.
Well, no, that makes me feel better, because we haven't either. And I would love somebody else to chime in if you have something, but I want to remind everyone, and we do not have ours ready to go either, but you know, we are required to post on our website our return to campus and return to athletics. And it's not something you have to turn into the CDC, but that is something that was released, that we have to have that posted on the website. So
I mean, I will say this, the one thing we're experimenting with, that we're trying, that's just wearing the gaiters. Like our middle school kids, we're going to have those gaiters, and they're going to pull them up, and we're been during summer conditioning, I've already been having the kids wear them even while they're exercising. We're even going to experiment with wearing them underneath their helmets. Obviously, with the definition of what close contact is for the UIL, if they're wearing a face covering, there is no close contact. So the more we can utilize those gaiters across their face, then the less kids we're going to be removing when there is a positive. So I know that is going to be a big part of our plan once we get into the nitty-gritty details.
Right. That's a great point. Anyone else on locker rooms and logistics?
Leslie, you know, with us, with our 16 different high schools, we have 16 different looks. And so one of the things that we're going to really count on is working with our campus coordinators and our athletic trainers and having them also play a part in helping us determine what that looks like for each campus, because it is going to be so different. I can foresee us doing some staggering. I also foresee us possibly having to utilize other spaces that are near the facility for the kids, just from a logistics standpoint and trying to get on to the next spot and things like that. But we're definitely going to rely on those people on our campus to assist us with that process and what it's going to look like.
That's great. And I think we will have to do the same. And I think involving your area coordinators, your junior high coordinators will be key, and getting your principals on the same page. And, you know, it is going to be challenging because, you know, I'm trying to picture a bunch of girls or guys in a locker room the way it's been in the past, and they're hurrying, trying to shower, and they're not used to social distancing anywhere, much less in a locker room. And I'm going to challenge our coaches to realize that practice this year is not going to look exactly like practice last year. They may have to shorten their practice so that we can stagger and get kids to class on time. So we're really going to have to be flexible and think outside the box. So thank you. Great point. Anybody else on logistics for locker rooms, practices?
Yeah, Leslie, I heard this one, and I don't remember where I heard it from, and it's one that is intriguing us, especially with the football guys. In Frisco, the way the locker rooms are kind of set up for football is you got the varsity in one locker room, and they got a sub-varsity in another locker room, which is 9th and JV. Well, what we're tinkering with, first of all, I think the key is staggering when people go in there, obviously. So different groups go in at different times. We're even talking about staggering 9th grade offensive linemen go in, and they're followed then by the 9th grade skill position kids, or whatever the case is. Sorry, my light went out. But having said that, the staggering, instead of having this 1 year only, we're thinking about just combining that space from varsity to sub-varsity. And you may look up and it's the varsity guys that are coming in, and it's the offensive linemen, and you might have 4 of them in the varsity locker room and 6 of them in a sub-varsity locker room, spread out about 6 lockers apiece. And then the same thing, another set of people come in. Maybe it's the skill position kids. Linemen are already out. Now the skill position kids come in, and they're spread out all over the whole facility, not just that one locker room. Because in the past, when you're just in your one locker room, everybody's side by side. Coaches like that. They like all the linemen to be in that same group so they can talk to them. Another big point that we're going to emphasize, and we've already started emphasizing that, is this, is that if the kids are on your facility, you better not be in the coach's office. And we've all done that. We've all done it where we come down there and there's a little bit of practice that I need to finish writing down right here. I need to, this drill, I need to remind. It's going to all be about supervision in the locker rooms. It's going to be about supervision in the hallways. It's going to be about supervision in the restrooms. And you can't do that while you're in the coach's office. Now, if I know that all the years when I went through coaching, and I can tell you at the campuses that I visit sometimes, there's not a time that I'll go by that there's not at least maybe 1 or 2 in there, and they're doing, they're I don't know, counting numbers of sweats that we have to give out. Guys, that's done before or after the kids come down there. So when the kids are with you, we've got to make sure that our guys are all on point. And I can tell you in Frisco, that will be a little bit different. And I'm not saying that they're all like that, but we got to get them out there to monitor them. And that way, when we do spread them out in our situation over multiple locker rooms at one time, that I've got enough bodies that I can keep an eye on those kids. And then we're going to also hammer the idea of what does a locker look like. I know everybody does that, but a lot of times it doesn't get done like that, because we will then turn around and in between practices during the day, and then also at the evening, we will have our custodians come in there with that fogger and spray in there. And so we got to make sure that things are put away. Helmet, shoulder pads, probably okay to get that on there. Not so much a mouthpiece. Shoes about to be the only other thing in there, etc. So it's going to be about managing your facility and trying to spread those kids out as much as you can, and trying to stagger them in there, and having coaches paying attention and getting on them, man. If there's too many of them do it, then we just tell them, fine, you just take your stuff and go. I mean, anyway, so some of those are new ideas and some of them are not.
No, thank you, Coach K. I think supervision is going to be the key for sure. And that, you know, I saw it pop up in the chat and y'all have asked some great questions. We'll try to get to some of those, but I'm glad someone just put it in the chat and I thought about it almost as you were typing it. Go back to press box. I'm concerned about our offensive and defensive room upstairs on our 3rd floor. And I don't know that we're going to be able to, I don't know that it's going to be able to look like it did a year ago, because that it's a little tight. I mean, it's a little tight. And are we going to have fewer coaches in the box? And because my fear is, if we don't do that and we have a positive and we have to trace it back, if we didn't have them social distance, instead of losing 1 coach, did we just lose 4 or 6? So any thoughts? Anybody thought about that yet for coaches' boxes? Nope. See, we got to put that on the list. So nobody panic. See, everybody on this panel is just crickets. See, it's okay.
Leslie, I thought about it, and I think I put it in the chat because it's been on my mind, but I just, you know, it's one of those, something that I'm going to have to look at. Go up to all the boxes and look at it and make a determination once we get in there. And I know someone said, well, if they're wearing masks, isn't that not close contact? But, you know, will they remain in a mask? You know, so again, some of it is going to be our adults are going to have to take some ownership of themselves as well in this process.
Correct. And we are going to have to get used to it not looking exactly like it did last year. And that's going to be hard. That's going to be a challenge, but I agree. So, you know, adding that to my list as well. So great question. Okay. I would like Kevin Pitts is our assistant AD in Richardson, and I wanted him on this panel because not only does he do an outstanding job, but he is a former athletic trainer. And I know Bob touched on the webinar coming up on Friday, but I would like Kevin to touch on how are we going to handle water at practices and games? And then what are the biggest challenges, Kevin, that you think our athletic trainers are going to face?
Thank you. Honored to be on this panel with these great distinguished leaders. Honored to have a small part of it, but just want to point out, we just talked about it just briefly just there, is nothing's going to look like what it did in the past. Nothing across the country, nothing across the world is looking like what it's done in the past. So we have to wrap our mind around that, and there is a new normal. We're not going to ever get back, as of right now, the next few months, get back to a normal, what we had in 2019 as far as football season goes. So we're going to have to wrap our minds, and we're all going to have to think outside the box. All of our staff, all of our great coaches and athletic trainers, we're going to have to think of new ways to be inventive to keep our players and keep our staff safe. So I think a lot of ideas, I've seen some in the chat room asking about what's going to happen with water for practicing games. We're still discussing it here in our ISD, from anywhere from encouraging everybody to bring their own water bottle for the smaller teams. Our coaches are going to have to get the mindset, we're going to have scheduled water breaks. And it's going to be stop practice and go get your water bottle. You're not going to have student athletic training aides behind you in the past with Gatorade water bottles or Powerade bottles squirting. They can pick it up anytime. So we're going to have more scheduled breaks, even for this volleyball and basketball. They're going to have to schedule time to go get their Yeti cup or whatever water bottle they might be using, or a cup that's laid out by the athletic trainers, and to go there, and then they need to make sure we're throwing it away. So there's going to be new mindset that we're all going to have to adapt to and adopt to get through practice so we can do it safely.
Thank you, Kevin. And Kevin, can you touch on what are your thoughts on, we've had a couple of other ADs ask me this question through text or a phone call, return to play after a positive, because is it going to look the same as return to school for a normal student? What does it look like? You know, we have return to play protocol for concussion. What are your thoughts on return to play after a COVID positive?
Yeah, I think that's the guidelines we're going to have to look into when we actually get a positive student athlete with a positive case. What they return, they're not just going to meet the CDC guidelines, or are they going to meet the CDC guidelines and then just go back into formal activity? I think a doctor's note, I know that's hard with some of our kids here in Richardson, going to a doctor. but it's some things that we're going to have to start thinking about as far as being clear to make sure there's no underlying conditions after they have I don't know, I'm a huge baseball fan, and there was a major league pitcher that had COVID very early on in the pandemic, like March, April, and he now has been shut down from their major league baseball pitching activities because they're worried about a heart condition, that he might have developed a inflammation around his heart that was caused by the COVID-related diagnosis earlier on 3 months ago. So those things that we're going to have to examine, what is going to be our return to play, because it's not just return to school and go right back out there. It may not necessarily be that, depending on how severe the case was. So there's a lot of steps in that. Also, we want to make sure everybody's talking to their athletic trainers. I'm sure most of the athletic trainers are already thinking about it, but scheduling treatments, scheduling taping. It's not going to be old school where you had 50 kids waiting in line to be taped in the athletic training room. It's going to be, you're going to limit the capacity of that room so you can social distance, even though they're wearing a mask, and you're not having kids around each other for a long period of time.
Still need to find a platform or service to stream them on, as well as figuring out a ticketing solution for streams.
Oh, getting some feedback, aren't we?
Yeah.
Something. Okay. Great points, Kevin. Thank you. Appreciate that. And looking forward to Bob sending us out that information for that link on Friday. I think that'll be very helpful for our ADs. I did glance. I know we may be running a little short on time. Bob, do we have time for can I answer a couple of them in the chat? Do we still have time?
Yeah, I actually allowed 2 hours for this, Leslie, so we can go as long as we have the energy to.
Okay, great. There's two that I noticed that I wanted to touch on. Volleyball, the question, are the teams going to switch benches? Now, I've not read it as an official rule change, and if it's in there, some of you may know it already, but Dr. Elza called me. I'm a former volleyball coach. I appreciate her calling me for my opinion, and she reached out to several volleyball coaches that are current volleyball coaches to get their opinion. And she said all 6 of us agreed that if we had a rule change that said, when you're playing volleyball, you stay on your bench, you don't switch after each set. Her question was, is that a big deal to you as a coach? And I said, absolutely not. Not a big deal at all. I've never understood, even when I played and coached, I didn't understand changing benches. There's really no need for it. And so she said, well, it looks like that's coming down from the National Federation and they'll adopt it. So if it's not been adopted yet, I think it's coming. And so your volleyball teams would not switch benches. You don't have to worry about disinfecting the chairs and switching between sets. It'll speed the game up. It'll be safer. And I'll be honest, as an administrator, we should all like it, because now your fans in your student section that's really rowdy and they're yelling and you're having to get onto them sometimes, now you put them behind your bench and they're always behind your bench. So I was absolutely 100% for it. So I think that is coming if it was not already officially adopted. And then the other one, someone asked, is your band traveling, drill team and band, are they going to go to away games, away football games? In RISD, we're meeting with our executive director of fine arts and our deputy superintendent. We're having a meeting this week about that. So we've not determined that yet, but I do know that that's something that we're going to talk about. So anyone on the panel, has anyone made a decision yet about bands traveling or not traveling, drill teams?
In Mansfield, the bands are not going to go on the road.
The same with Fort Worth.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, what about inside? I was also wondering about performances. Have y'all, I know in Richardson, we haven't addressed pep rallies yet. We haven't addressed, we usually have performances at halftime of basketball games. It's on the list, but I'm gonna be honest, we haven't addressed it yet. And homecoming. Are we really having homecoming? Because I don't know how you have homecoming and it looked like it did in the past. So curious if anyone on the panel has addressed homecoming yet, or halftime performances at a basketball game. Put it on the list. Put it on the list. Think about homecoming, because I know the challenge is when you say homecoming, to me, that's telling everybody, alumni, come back, come to the game, and then we're limiting tickets. So communication is going to really be key there for sure. So add that one to your list. And then Bob, can you look at the chat and see if there's any that you think we haven't touched on?
There were a couple of topics. I'll run through what I saw. This one will give everybody a tired head, but we have little and no control over the 7-on-7 and the clubs and the select teams that are still playing in a lot of cases. So are y'all communicating anything to your coaches to tell their players about whether they should or shouldn't be doing those things? That's a really tough subject to work around, but I know if we're social distancing in our activities and we're trying to protect kids, when you drive down the road and you see a game going on outside, they're not doing that stuff. So what are you doing with your coaches to help them educate their kids and their parents?
I think the biggest message we've been given is this. Our kids want to play as bad as our coaches do, and just reminding them consistently that if you really want a season and you really want to play this fall, you will do your part, and I think our seniors are taking it very serious because they're looking, at the possibility of not being able to have their senior year in their sports. So that's the biggest thing I'd say is just our parents through summer condition have admitted over and over, Coach, that is the safest place my kid goes all day long. And we're not making them social distance anywhere else or do anything else. So they've been very supportive of what we're doing, but just getting the reality to those kids that if you want a season, you better be making the right choices when you're not with us.
A great point. And I will say that I'm just going to be completely honest. It's probably what I'm the most frustrated about because in Dallas County, they shut us down. And so our kids are safer with us. And yet we know that our kids, they want to play. So yes, do we still have kids playing select and club sports? We do. And we've just asked our coaches to talk to them again, kind of like Sean said about be smart, make smart choices. But for us in Dallas County, we were hoping they would at least let us practice outside, like the order from Tarrant County, but we're shut down completely. So that is frustrating because we know they were safer with us. We know they're not really going through a screening process, not to the extent they were with us. So it is frustrating. It's out of our control right now. But all we can do really is do virtual workouts and send workouts online and talk to our kids through, the Remind app or Sports U or whatever whatever we can do to communicate with them, but we're not physically seeing our kids right now. And when we were physically seeing them, we were reminding them, when you leave here, you've got to be smart. If we want a season, you have to be smart. So I wish that the club and select sports would take it as serious as we do. That would be very helpful. Anybody else on that topic?
Yeah, Leslie, we about 3 weeks ago sent out a letter to parents that covered some of those things, and we sent it to every coordinator to all the schools and wanted them to push that out. Just like at all of y'all's place, everybody is AAU, club softball, club baseball, crazy. I would venture to say this, of the positive test results that we had during the summer in our strength and conditioning, I would say easily 75% of the test results came from those kids were at AAU tournament or somewhere, or they got it because they were at a softball tournament somewhere, or heaven forbid their parents had a party that had all the softball team over and they were all there together. So for us, it seems a little bit like a no-brainer. I mean, hello, what are we doing here? And yet every afternoon when I go home from work and then I walk around Warren Park over there are times that you can't even get through because there's so many people on their way to a soccer practice or an individual instruction. We got a lot of individual instruction that still goes on for groups of kids. Those specialists, those are the pros, And man, it just that to me, guys, that's what's going to hurt us in getting back the way we should be, because you just got so many people that think they're immune and it doesn't happen to them. And you know what? They've gone on several weeks and nothing has happened. So, hey, what's the problem? So I don't think that changes our message. I think we still have to say what we need to say to the right people at the right time. And that's all we can do, and just keep pushing the vibes out there.
Yeah, I got a couple more questions related to our athletic venue, specifically our stadiums. So if a family of 4 walks in, they've all got tickets, I'm assuming they can sit together, but then policing that next family of 4 who's friends with that other family, how are we going to manage keeping them separate that's a never-ending job. I don't know how you even staff that. So have you got any ideas on that, or have you even thought about that yet?
Hey, Bob, I don't want to speak out of turn because, again, this could change on a dime. But one of the things that they did do during our graduation was we actually had staff here at the stadiums that actually kind of control where people went to sit. And that way we were able to keep those people from, keep social distancing and things like that. Not certain we're going to be able to do that for every football game, but that did work. That was a process that worked. I saw it myself, and again, just something to think about.
Very good. Two more quick ones. Entry and egress. Our most crowded areas in our stadiums are where people are entering or leaving the stadium. So you probably had to manage that for graduation. So are you going to be doing the same thing you did for graduation when they come to an athletic event?
We failed miserably at graduation.
I'm gonna say we're gonna try because Val, you're right. We had a plan, but I think people weren't listening to the plans because when we said this group exit this way, people weren't listening. And so that's something that we might think about is exiting by sections and things like that. Because the end of the game, we have three ways. If you're on the west side of our stadium where I am now, we could have people exiting from three ways. And so it's just something that, we definitely got to look at. And like Leslie said earlier, thankfully, we have a little time and where we can actually go out and walk and really put good thought to it. Because right now, it's not about being right, it's getting it right by September the 28th for us.
Right, and something I just thought of, we had an outdoor graduation too, but they couldn't sit in the stands. So we didn't really have this practice run. It's just that they came in at a certain time, they walked on a stage that was on the turf. And so we still have a lot to work out, but thinking about concession stands, and I think we're gonna need to put the little markers down like they have at the grocery store. And we need some visuals. And so it's just a thought of not waiting to the last minute to what kind of visuals do you need? And then, we can play the what if game all day long, but if we have bad weather like we've had the last couple of years, and remember the season where we had, I don't know how many lightning delays, world record lightning delays, and you get all of those kids and all those people under your stands, and we're supposed to make them social distance. It's just, we need to think about staffing it and trying to keep people out, because what you would hate to have is an outbreak and it be traced back to one of our events. But I know we can only control so much. But I was just starting to think about signage and visuals, not only concession stands at the football game, but think about your gyms and think about baseball and softball.
So a topic on masks. Some of our leaders, national, state, and local, have the opinion that wearing a mask is protection for me and for you, and that I could stand and sit next to you. So we'll have to pay attention to how that discussion evolves, because that may change everything we're talking about today about if you wear a mask, then I can sit by Lisa Langston, or the mask doesn't mitigate that and I've got to stay 6 feet away. So that's going to be an ever evolving thing. The last stadium question is the very difficult to manage student section. That's one of the more exciting places to be in a stadium at a football game or at a volleyball or a game or a basketball game. And those kids don't know what 6 feet apart is. They love being on top of each other. So I'm sure you thought about it, but have you got a plan for what to do for those kids, or that's down the road somewhere? I sense it may be down the road somewhere.
Yes. Hey, when you hear silence, it's on the list. Yeah, it's on the list.
Hey, you see me? I'm writing
yes.
right now.
Yes. Kevin and I actually talked about that this morning, and then the more I think about it, I foresee needing more staff, or the staff's role changing. So, having additional ushers, because we have principals that are in that section, but our principals are going to need support because a principal can't do it, or an AP, by himself or herself. So I think support, and it's kind of like strength and conditioning. Don't you wish you had $1 for every time you walked in to check on strength and conditioning, or you heard your coach say 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart? That's what it's going to sound like, I think, at a football game or a basketball game or a volleyball game the entire time. Because we can get them to start out that way, but then they're going they're going to get closer together as the game goes on. And I think it's going to be a huge challenge for our staff and for our principals.
Hey, Bob, you and Leslie, I think one of y'all touched on this. Guys, to do the things that we're talking about doing, it's going to cost money. It's not free. And we've already talked about that we're going to have additional people in the stands that are helping those people that don't quite understand the 6-foot difference. Other things we're going to have to start thinking about is how can we speed up the entry? So one of our solutions is you're going to have a ticket when you come to the game anyway. We're not selling any tickets at the gate. So you show it, bang, you're in. You show it, bang, the next one in. Same thing with concession stands. I know that we will sell only prepackaged food, and it may be things that we haven't decided yet whether you can only buy it with a credit card or whether it's only everything's rounded off to the dollar. And maybe it's $1, $5, $10, whatever way we can get them in and out of there quickly, as well as having some more supervision. We talked, you know, we're a district that now is looking around and making sure that as they come in, they go and they're wanded and they're looked at the bags, the bag policy and all that. Well, we are actually now have hired a company to do that for us at our 3 stadiums. So we have a bunch of people that were doing that for Frisco ISD, and now they're going into the stands and they're going to help us with the social distancing a little bit. So I know that's easy to say, and you say, well, Coach K, I don't have any money to do that. Guys, we got to let the administration know to do these things right. It's going to cost some more money. Maybe you can tap into booster clubs or whatever the case is, but it's not going to be easy. You're not going to be able to just use staff that you normally use to fill a ball game, I guess.
Well, Leslie, I've asked the questions that came up in the chat. I'm going to have some closing comments when you finish. So go ahead and see if there's any more topics y'all want to discuss.
Okay, well, there's one that just came to my mind that maybe we need to add to the list, and probably some of you have already thought about it. I know for us, and probably most of you, you have special nights at your games, whether it's volleyball, basketball, or football, like elementary night, junior high night, and it brings in a ton of kids, and it's great for the community. But I think we're going to have to rethink some of that. I don't know how we have a elementary night and get the numbers that we've had in the past. I think we need to think through some of that, and I hadn't even thought about that until today. So just something to think about.
Anything else?
Anybody else?
I was gonna say, you know, it takes a lot to stimulate thought for me, but this always does. And one of the things that really kind of has kind of jumped out to me is, you know, Kevin talked about like return to play protocol. So what if you get into by district and one district has a more liberal return to play protocol than another district does? Do we need to be extrapolating out some of the agreements that we have? Do we need to be talking with our by district opponents about what is our return to play protocol going to be to have a level playing field? You know, are those discussions that we need to go beyond what our DEC is and start talking about what that return to play protocol is in terms of, you know, competitiveness? You know, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm just listening to this and I keep thinking, does it need to be, do we need to broaden our thinking beyond just our district? Just a thought.
Yeah, I think it's a great thought. I think it's something that definitely we need to think about. Because Philip, what I think is that if we don't start thinking about it now, we'll be in the middle of it. And I kind of relate it to, you can't be in the middle of a season and decide your tiebreaker. You know, that doesn't work. But you have to think now about every kind of scenario and think, what can we live with? What's good for kids? What's safe? What do we have flexibility on and what do we not have flexibility on based on health guidelines? And then those can change. And we better be ready to be flexible. I mean, 50% capacity, are we really at that the whole time? Or like Bob said, if you have a mask, does that change how you can seat people? I mean, whatever plans we put in place this week, next week, or next month, I think we better be ready to be flexible because it definitely could change.
Yeah, do we need to have a regional ADs meeting and talk about, you know, playoff protocols for the region? You know, is that something that we need to do for each one of your competitive regions? I mean, that seems somewhat arduous to me, but it might be something that you know, we need to broaden our thinking.
I think it's worth thinking about because I'm afraid that if we get in the middle of an issue, we're going to say, I wish we would have done this.
Hey, Leslie, I got something that we've been batting around a little bit over in Frisco, and that's this, is that, you know, to me, there's a difference in a county judge telling a particular rule, or the governor saying it has to be a certain way, or maybe even the superintendent, I don't know, from a school. But when a coach says that he's got X number of kids that are exposed and we got that many less on the team, I'll give you an example of what happened at one of our campuses 2 years ago. Well, there was a party off campus and there was some alcohol at it. And so the head coach decided that 9 of his starters were not going to play the next ball game. You know what happened? We moved kids up and we played the ball game. So the point I'm trying to make is that I think that deal about forfeit and counting at a forfeit, and the way the worded is in the UIL and some of the DEC stuff, they talk about you can't call a non-district game a forfeit, okay? It doesn't mention what a district game is called, but you can, and I think what they're trying to get us to do in district is just have enough gaps in there that we can play somehow late at the end of the season, or have some buys in there so that will actually happen. But it's just, it's hard for me to think in Frisco, even at all of our 10 schools, if a couple of 3 of their players go down, it's next man up. You know, let's get out there and play the ball game with what we have. Now, all I'm saying is that we went through this summer training thing, and we had a sizable number total from Frisco ISD, averaged about 3 per campus. I just feel like that if it's humanly possible that you can play, even if it's with your backup quarterback, or maybe it's your backup wide receiver, or maybe it's the free safety and the wide receiver, you should play the ball game. And I know, and I'm not, you can't write that into minutes or rules or regulations or anything like that. Because I think if you leave it up to different places, again, Philip talked about this earlier, is that it's all about integrity and ethics and morals that the coach has and the district has, and they wouldn't try to pull oh, well, I got 2 starters out, man, I'm done, you know, whatever the case is. And I don't know what a magic number is, you know, does it mean that 12 starters are out? Having gone through it this summer, we didn't have maybe 12 plus on any given time period. So to me, it's more like there'll be a handful that might not be able to play, and still trying to get the return to play for those people. But the ones that are healthy, let's get out there and play. That's just my opinion.
Great point.
Well, very good. I think we've addressed a lot of topics today. There's a lot yet to be determined. Of course, it seems like every 3 or 4 days our world changes anyway. So I want to thank everyone for attending today, and Leslie for moderating. This is an excellent webinar. This will be, I'm going to edit this a little bit, and then we'll post it on our website. So if you want to watch it again, because you're on live TV, it'll be there for all of our members and for you guys to view also. A couple of reminders, the athletic trainer webinar this Friday at 10 o'clock, you'll get an attendee invite today. Many of our sponsors, as I alluded to with the Varsity Brands and Hellas, have kind of reinvented themselves to a degree, and we now have some summer sponsor very 5 or 6 minute webinars that they have kind of laid out their plan for keeping our coaches and our kids safe, and what their companies are doing in regards to that. So that's on our website also. There's a series of 18 of those, very short watches. And then I'm sure you guys all heard that our fall forum has been canceled. Even if we were able to gather for that, that's going to be right around the area when you're starting to play your game, so it really wouldn't be appropriate for us to do that. We're moving forward with our state conference in December, so keep your fingers crossed on that. And if I could ask Leslie and David and Rusty and Philip and Sean, if you guys have a minute or so, stay on when the meeting closes, and we'll debrief on the meeting. So Leslie, any closing comments from you?
Thank you, Bob. Just again, thank you for putting this together for this webinar, and thank you to the panelists. Just value each and every one of you and your leadership and just your expertise. And then for all of you that are listening, I encourage you to stay positive, to show grace and show flexibility, and know that you're not alone. And when you get stressed and feel like I don't have answers, I need the answers, that's when you pick up the phone and you call or you text. Anyone on this panel I know has an open door policy. I reach out to them weekly. And the same thing, we're better together. And I know we're going to get through this. but it is going to be challenging, and the rules are going to change, and we've got to have flexibility, and it's not going to be easy, but we all interviewed for these jobs, and but there was not a question on my interview about how to lead during a pandemic. So definitely a new territory, but look at it, look at the positives. We're going to grow from this, and our coaches need us more than ever, and kids need coaches more than ever. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you to our panelists.
All right, guys, y'all have a great day. Thank you.
All right, thank